Welcome. In this short video, we are going to talk about built-in objects. In the last video, we gave a sort of an early preview of object-oriented programming and talked about objects having both properties or state and behavior or methods. So every JavaScript object has properties and methods, and that's really important to keep in mind as you make your journey to JavaScript. Now, JavaScript out of the box, the language itself provides a number of built-in objects that are already ready for you to use. You certainly can design and develop your own objects, but at the same time, JavaScript provides a number of them for you already that are full of useful capability. If you haven't already done the lesson in Code Academy, pause this video and we're going to do them together or take up the solution together. When you're ready to check your solution against our solution, resume the video. Okay, welcome back. I assume you've tried the exercises for the lesson on built-in objects. We're going to just take up the solution very quickly together. The very first exercise is asking you, as always, to put your solution inside console.log. And what they want you to put inside console.log is a randomly generated number that you then multiply by 100. So we'll do that together. And the way you do that is simply, oops, just a little bit more there than I anticipated. All right. So they want you to take math.random, a random generated number, which happens to be a number generated between 0 and 1. It's a real number, and they want you to scale it or multiply it by 100. And there you go. We see a random number 8.80, on and on and on, a long real number which we've multiplied by 100 that gave us that result. If I were to run this again, I should get a different number because math.random generates random numbers. It shouldn't generate the same number again and again and again. So if we run this a second time, you can see the number changed. And if I run it even a third time, it should be a third different number. Now they're asking us to do a second part here. They're saying use math.floor to make the output a whole number. So if you look at the documentation for math, and we talked about in the last video how to see the documentation for built-in objects, but I'll take a little diversion and show it anyway. If we go to our webpage on all the built-in objects in JavaScript, which you can Google and find, or take note of this URL. This tells you all the built-in objects in JavaScript. Again, if we look along the left and we scroll down, we see all the different built-in objects available to us. And we're looking for the math.object. Here it is, and inside the math.object, again, if we look on the left, we can find out all the methods. They're asking us to use the floor method. So if we really want to understand it better, here's the description of what it does. It returns the largest integer less than or equal to a given number. So it's kind of like what you learned in math class of rounding down to the nearest whole number. So let's do that together right now. They want us to replace this or change the solution to use the floor method. So now we're taking the solution that we got from the last exercise and we're using math.floor on it. This is an interesting exercise because it gets us to nest a method call inside another method call. In other words, the parameter of math.floor is a call to another method and the arithmetic operation of multiplication combined. So we're nesting one method inside another. And if I run this now, we get a whole number between 1 and 100, in this case 72. Actually, I think it would be a whole number between 0 and 99. But anyways, we got the number 72. All right, in the third exercise, they're asking us now to use, again, the math object to return the smallest integer greater than or equal to a decimal number. And then they're saying use this method with the number 43.8, log the answer to the console. In this exercise, they're kind of like hinting that if you want to understand how these methods work in the math object, like we said earlier, just click on this link to see the documentation that we showed earlier. So that documentation becomes very useful to understand all the different methods and what they do, not only in the math object, but all built-in objects. Let's do the solution for the next exercise right now. Okay, so they wanted us to find out the method that returns the smallest integer greater than or equal to a decimal number 43.8. If you looked in the math document, the documentation for the math object, you would have found that the method that does that is called ceil, maybe like for ceiling. They're using the analogy of floor and ceiling. And then again, in your math class, this would have been known as kind of like rounding up. So if we were to round this up, I believe this should, if my math is right, we should see the number 44. Okay, and it worked. We got the number 44. We rounded up using the math.ceil with the parameter 43.8, and we put all of that inside a console.log as we've been doing since the beginning of these classes. We've got one more lesson to go. This time they're saying, again, they're not telling us the name of the method. They want us to discover it on ourselves by referring to the JavaScript documentation. This time we're not using the math object, we're using the built-in object number. And they want us to check that the number is, if the number is an integer or not. And the number they want us to use is 2017. So they want us to check whether the number 2017 is indeed an integer number and to print that to the console.log. So let's do that together. Imagine that we opened up the JavaScript documentation for built-in objects, found the documentation for the built-in object number, and we found what we were looking for. The method name is integer. We put the value 2017 inside the method is integer, and it should tell us true or false. It should print either true or false because we're putting this method invocation inside a console.log. And in fact, indeed, 2017 is an integer, and we are good to go. Thanks for watching. All the best in your journey to JavaScript.